Hey guys, Dominic from Give Me Growth here. Today we're going to talk about referrals, probably one of my favorite topics, also a topic that most people are really eager to talk about. So to give you a little bit of background, I was a co-founder at Talkable, which is a referral platform. It's very popular, mainly for e-commerce, also worked on a lot of marketplaces and SaaS tools. But here's a list of some of the companies that while I was there, I built or at least worked on constructing. So have a lot of experience in seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked. Before diving too deep into these types of referral programs specifically, I want to talk about the different types of virality, just so we're not confused. There's really three different types. The first part is implicit. Implicit is where sharing is actually part of the product. So you might think about Facebook or games like Words with Friends, where in order to use the product to its full extent, you have to share. There's organic virality, which is when the content is just so good, you have to share it. So for example, kittens doing karate, some recipe. So BuzzFeed, Reddit, these are all great examples of places where there's organic content. The last part is incentivized sharing. This is commonly referred to as a refer a friend program or a give to get program. It's essentially where you shift the ad budget to your customers because they become the publisher to reach the desired audience, which is their friends. Dropbox is a unique example of this because they both have implicit virality with folders, but also incentivized with their give to get program. So for this purpose, we're going to include them under incentivized. This lesson is primarily all about incentivized sharing because that's what we're really talking about here with referral programs. Let's just talk about what the definition of an incentivized referral program is. And let's get some definitions and terminology straight so that we're not confused. So when person A, being the person who is our existing customer or who we want to share, actually invites their friend who is the intended person or person B who we want to get to buy, that's an incentivized referral as long as we give person A and person B an incentive. To keep things straight, let's call person A, the sharer, let's refer to them as the advocate. Let's call person B, the person who we want to buy, the friend. Now, I really believe that referrals is one of the holy grails of marketing because it's so organic, but it's also very misunderstood. People look at referrals as almost like a golden ticket, almost like this magical marketing tactic that you can just add into your business. I think largely that's because everybody's seen referrals popularized by Dropbox and Airbnb and all the success stories. And while that's true and while that's great, these programs didn't just get there overnight. They took a lot of engineering and a lot of examination and optimization in order to get there. And there's great blog articles about both of those processes. Referrals isn't something that you can just duplicate and tack onto your product, but that doesn't mean that it can't be important and impactful. Let's also think about where referrals sits in the pirate funnel. It's usually close to the bottom, and it's down here for a reason. A, it's further down the funnel, so there's less people that can do it. And B, it's also a hard tactic to pull off because it's double-sided. I'll show you that in a second. So hopefully you don't think I'm being discouraging. I'm not. Just want to make sure that people don't rush off to referral land, spend a lot of time, and then get frustrated. Like all things, I believe you should try to validate it as much as possible before going forward. Even before validating it, you might want to ask yourself these questions. Do you have good product market fit? Do you have good NPS? Most people will never refer a product that they don't love to somebody else. A great PMF test is the Sean Ellis one, and here's a link for that, as well as an easy way to do an NPS survey. The other thing that's really important is your audience even large enough? If you don't have at least 2,000 plus people to ask for referrals, usually it doesn't make sense unless it's so simple to bake into your product from the beginning. And lastly, if you're going out to build a referral program, you have to ask yourself if you have the bandwidth. Because of all the complexities, it can really sink up a lot of time from your team. Let's say that you do have all these and you want to find a way to smoke test it. Recently, I had a feature in growthhackers.com, which if you're not part of that community yet, you should definitely check it out, especially their new ideas of the day. And this feature was around a way to smoke test a referral program by using just a simple email and some of the tools that we like. Now, I'll walk through this exact process at the end to show it to everybody to make sure that we all can do this if we don't yet have a referral program. But let me just talk through this really quickly. First, we use email, which is very simple to run. We include some variables like email, name, etc. that we can pass through. Now, the point of this email is to get the advocate to just forward it to a friend, rather than getting them to go to a share page and having to share and enter emails, etc. There's less friction here. When the friend clicks this, it drives into a typeform where they claim it. Now, in that typeform, we're passing some of the variables from that initial email into hidden fields, and the friend is entering their email. So this way, we're A, getting a new lead in case that person doesn't convert, because remember, those micro conversions are important, but also B, we're setting up a tracking relationship in this new relational database that can just be in a Google Sheet. Now, a lot of people don't like the manual rewarding part at the end, but I think it's fine if you're just running this as a smoke test. If this starts to work out, you should definitely automate it. Okay, well, let's move forward and let's also think about what the expectation should be. I've never seen a sustainable company have more than 10 to 15% of all their sales coming from referrals. Don't get discouraged too early on because you might not be there, but you can usually double the performance of the channel in the first 3 to 6 months because there's so many different optimization points. The highest I've ever seen is around 60% of sales, but that wasn't sustainable. It was eventually eaten by ad budget. The reason I'm telling you this is if you see that a majority of your sales are coming from referrals, that's fantastic, but don't rely on that always being the case because most channels do wane off after time. The last thing here is that word of mouth will always have some untrackable component. You may be getting sales from referrals even though you're not tracking it directly back there. Okay, perfect. Well, in the next section, we're going to get into the journey and talk about the different stages of referrals.